After checking for predators in the tree, I think it's time to go back inside and make some crepes. First thing to do is crack open the eggs. I like to take the eggshells and collect them for a week or two, as you can see in this little container I have on the left there. That way I can bake them at 300 degrees for 20 minutes, until it turns brown a little bit. And that way we can either smash them up using a mortar or pestle or whatever we want to do to break it into smaller pieces before throwing it into the compost so that can break down easier, or we can even feed it back to our ducks. We feed them oyster shells for calcium, but actually feeding them their own eggshells back once they've been baked is also good for them. After the 2 eggs are ready, the next step is to add some milk. It's important to add the milk before adding the flour because you'll see that the stirring goes a lot more smoother. It will get more clumpy if you add the flour first and then try to stir it with the milk, and it's more difficult to do that way. I added about 2 cups of milk. I don't really measure it anymore because at the end it's more important the consistency I have for the crepes rather than any particular amount. And depending on the type of milk or the eggs or whatever I have, the measurements could be a little bit different. So the main thing that I actually focus on at the end is, once the consistency is right, do I have enough batter for the amount of crepes that I want to make? And if I don't, then I add some more milk at the end and a little bit more flour to balance out the consistency one more time. As you can see here, I don't add all the flour in at once. Once again, this is to prevent the batter from getting too clumpy. If I add a little flour in at a time and then mix it in, then that just works a little bit better. It stays a little bit cleaner while I'm doing the mixing. I'm going to speed up the video here 4 times speed so that you don't have to watch me do this the whole time. From beginning to end, it takes me about 30 minutes to make crepes, and that includes cooking them one at a time. So it takes a little bit of a time investment, but as far as making breakfast goes, it doesn't take too long. Once the batter is ready, there are a few other ingredients that are optional that you can add in. Every crepes needs some sort of liquid, whether it's water or milk or some kind of milk substitute. And then the other 2 main ingredients are some kind of flour and some kind of eggs. Here I added a bit of cinnamon, and then I'm adding almond extract. It only needs a dash of each. Some people can really tell the taste of just even a dash, whereas other people can't really tell the difference. I'm going to mix in those additional ingredients, and then I want to show you the consistency that I really like to have for the crepes. It needs to stick to the whisk or whatever stirring device you have, but not stick too much. And this will come into play when we're trying to spread it over the pan. You'll see how it spreads better when it's just the right consistency. I have this specific crepe plan. I used to just make crepes with a regular pan until I made them so many times that I went ahead and invested in this crepe pan. It distributes the heat a little bit better than just a regular pan, and it's lighter weight, so it's easier to flip the crepes. But otherwise, other pans can do just fine as well. There's just, with every pan, it's a little bit different. So I like to butter the pan. You could also use oils instead, but it's good practice to add a little bit of something to the pan before every crepe. There's a common saying that says the first crepe that you make is always bad, but I actually once took a crepe making class, and they said, the chef there said that that's just a myth. The biggest problem with, and the reason that the first crepe tends to be bad, is people are not patient enough to wait for the pan to heat up the right amount, and so that's why the first one turns out differently. So depending on whether I was patient or not this time, we'll see how the first one turns out. I put my hand over the pan to see if it's warm enough. If you can actually feel the heat just by placing your hand there, that's typically when I'd say, in my opinion, it's warm enough to get started. Unlike with pancakes, when you probably want to hold the batter over the pan before you drop it on, with crepes I like to hold the pan right to the batter, and as you saw, kind of move it over so I don't have any spill. And that allows me to rotate the pan around and spread the crepes around evenly that way. When you buy a crepe pan, they actually give you a wooden crepe spreading tool, but honestly, I've never used that because I just like to make crepes for us to eat. I'm not trying to make them perfect. Once the edge of the crepe is starting to brown a little bit like that, you can tell that it's ready to flip. And another way you can tell that it's ready to flip is that with a spatula, you're actually able to get it underneath the crepe. If it wasn't ready, you wouldn't easily be able to get underneath the crepe. Then, this is what it looks like on both sides once you flipped and cooked the crepe. So let's go on to the next one. There is an art in how you move the pan around and how I even backfill some of the places that maybe didn't have as much batter on it as you'd like. But after a while, you get the hang of it and just form your own best practices. This time, the crepe is not ready to flip, so I wasn't able to get the spatula under there easily enough. So I waited a little bit longer until the edge is browned, and then now the spatula can go under there just fine, and the crepe is ready to be flipped. And this is the part of the video where it got cat bombed. The best thing to do at this time is just to go ahead and feed the queen. She was pretty vocal, although I had cut out the audio clips since I'm dubbing this later on. And you can't have a crepe making video without at least flipping the crepe once or twice. I've done this many times in my life, and most of the time I just use a spatula at this point, but that doesn't mean I can't do it. I've done it enough. The most impressive way to flip a crepe is to really just go ahead and yell, "Oppa!" right as you're doing it. But none of that will matter if you drop the crepe, and none of it will matter if you don't eat the crepe, which is what we're getting to here. I like to have several different types of toppings to try out. Here I think I have some kind of a strawberry or berry mix jam. But there's so many different types of toppings to choose. We can't cover them all in any video. On the back of the countertop there, ooh, that's tasty. On the back of the countertop there, you can see that we've got some chocolate spread. We have a different type of jam. And in this case, it's a mix of cinnamon and sugar, sometimes called ciment in the area where I'm from. And this is just absolutely delicious. Some of them are more acquired tastes than others. If you got an organic nut butter like this one, you really have to stir it first before you put it in there. Otherwise, it'll just either be only the very liquidy part on top or too hard from the bottom. But even if it's too hard, the temperature of the crepe will often melt it, so that can still work quite well. Just as there are many toppings that you could choose for your crepes, there's just as many ways to eat them. I like to roll them up like this so that you can eat it like a taco or a burrito, but I'm sure you've seen many other ways that you can have them as well. A couple more thoughts before I bring you over to the ducks who we are thanking for this morning breakfast. I also want to thank my mom who taught me how to make crepes when I was a kid and a picky eater, but this always seemed to be alright with me. And finally, just go ahead and enjoy your meal. Bon appetit, guten appetit, yoit vayak, salamat makan, buen provecho, and more.